Hey guys, welcome back to another one of my kit videos. This is a bit of a continuation of last week's video having the problems with the Redline Mini SFR Airsoft Regulator. Sadly, I've not managed to get on top of these problems yet. The full strip and clean and grease and build hasn't managed to stop that jewel creep. So, that pressure creep even. So, sadly, I need some spare parts for it, I think. I've spoken with Redline since then, and they've suggested that I strip and clean again and follow a bit more of their actual manual rather than some random kind of YouTube videos, which is fine. And they've also kind of suggested that I swap out a couple of the O-rings. They don't think the O-rings need it because they look okay-ish, but they've said that they need to get some over to me anyway. However, I'm playing this weekend. As you watch this video, I'm kind of playing tomorrow. So I kind of needed a regulator and I needed it fast. So a huge, huge, huge shout out and thanks to the guys over at AirTac. So this is one of the new Balystik SMR200 regulators. So I reached out to these guys straight after I filmed the video on the Redline Mini and said, look, I'm really sorry. Guys, I absolutely need a regulator. I need a regulator fast, and I want a small one. Can you help? And the guys over at AirTac were absolutely awesome, and they said, yeah, we've got one of these. So my previous experience with Balystik, I had one of the HPA 800C version 3s, and it was absolutely fine. It was brilliant. It did me for at least a year and a half with completely trouble-free. So my kind of thinking was, a lot of people kind of don't like the Balystik stuff because it's cheap, but it worked for me, so I don't mind running a Balystik regulator because it's always worked perfectly fine for me. I moved up onto a Redline, which is supposed to be a significantly better regulator, and I've had problems, so no problem stepping kind of down a bit if it means it'll work. So I can't use a HPR 800C because of the size of my bag. You have to really stuff them into the VX charger if you want it to fit. So speaking with AirTac, they said this was the one to go for. So as I'm opening the box here, you will see on the top of it, it does say SMR regulator with 40-inch US line. Well, I actually ordered mine without the US line because I have the amped line. So I got it a little bit cheaper because of that as well. So it comes packed. Remove that top piece of polystyrene. You get a little baggie, and I will explain what the gubbins in there are for very shortly. And then you actually get the regulator itself, which we're going to pull out. So there we go. I'm going to move that box off to one side. I'm going to keep that there because then I can put the regulator on it, so it's not banging against the table. So, regulator is in my hands. It's out. It's ready to go. What's different about it? So, it's very plain black. We have the Foster's fitting pre-attached, and it does look to be kind of thread locked or PTFE'd in as well, so that's not going to leak. Nice solid feeling connector as well, which is always a bonus. There is a pressure gauge on it, although it's a very high pressure gauge. I wouldn't expect to see a gauge that high. The regulator can only actually output, I think it's 140 maximum, so I don't see the point in having this up to 300 psi gauge on here. So that might be something that I swap out in the future if I feel it needs it. So then we've got the thread. You can see there's the kind of the adjustable brass collar in there, and yeah, it looks pretty good. Let's have a look at the bits you get with it. So the main kind of adjustment really is this Allen key here. That is to do your pressure up and down. And then there is a groove around the body of the reg here. And the idea is that once you've put your Allen key in and got your pressure right, you put a zip tie around there, zip, and that's your tournament lock as well. So tournament lock is built in. There are two smaller grub screws on here, which I imagine when you undo those, you can kind of split the regulator down, you just unscrew it apart. We're not going to be doing that because it works, and I kind of want to keep it working until at least the end of tomorrow. So, the extra bits that you get with it in here are a mini Allen key. So the mini Allen key is just used for adjustment of the output pressure of your regulator. Put the spring there. When it's on your bottle, the Allen key just slides up inside there. So that's fine. That gives you a little bit of kick away from your bottle. Likewise, for very fine adjustments, you can use the slightly bigger end, the small end, so you've got a bigger handle on it. You do have significantly more limited movement doing that, but it still works just as good. So quite happy with that. And then this is a heavier output spring. So what you can do is when you take it apart, there is the spring which I guess sits on the back of that. And what this spring will do is you take the old one out. So with the current spring, it will go from like 0 to 140 psi. With this heavy bad boy spring, I think it'll do from 80 up to about 200 psi. So actually, having that higher gauge in there is worthwhile. I completely forgot that it does do the higher pressure gauge region, so that's why it's such a wide-reaching gauge. Now, if you're like me and you never plan on running this thing above maybe 110, you can just get a replacement gauge to go on here. Just take this one off, put the new one on. It's no different to changing one of these out. Just stick a spanner on it, whip it off, new one, PTFE tape, on it goes. Obviously, what you would have to be very aware of then is if you ever did swap to the big spring, that if you crank that pressure up, you could blow the gauge out. But again, not the end of the world. So that's what the spare parts are. From what I have read, if you order the one with the flexible line included, the line is very nice. It's very flexible indeed, not like some of the amped or the other ballistic lines where they can be quite taut. It is nice and flexible, so if you're kind of running it through a rig or something, it's quite nice. And it'll kind of blend in and go through your loops well. So there we go. That's the SMR200 Mini. I'm super impressed with this. Nice and small. Refresh rate is good. I've had it hooked up to one of my guns, and you know, it pings around as all brand new regulators do. They do need a little bit of a kind of a shooting in or a wearing in period. So I'm not going to have a chance to actually get a lot of rounds through this before I play. So when I play, I'm actually just going to end up with the power just a little bit lower than I normally would do, just to get it broken in. But I'm fairly sure full day we'll get this thing broken in properly. So there we go. The HPA journey continues. Just when you think you've got all your kit absolutely spot on, obviously things can go wrong. They do go wrong. We can continue in one way or another. So before I finish this video, again, I would just like to do another huge thank you and shout out to the guys over at AirTac for sorting me out with this. And yeah, if you were kind of thinking about going for the HPA 800, the SMR 200, well, there's a little bit of a hands-on and around it for you. So thank you very much. Please hit that like button. Please drop me a comment, and please join me on my YouTube journey with a sub. I will put links down here to the Reg and to AirTac shop. And thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.